Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
This'll be fun, he says sarcastically.
We've got Chris.
Jason Todd.
Jason!
Press X to Jason.
Press X to Jason. And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. We are today... Is this episode coming out on April Fool's or like right around there?
It's like it's the week of April Fool's Day. It's technically March still, but you know.
Happy April Fool's Day.
We get it early, and this is my favorite time of the year. We get to read. We try to read like the historically great comics. You know, your Swamp Things. You know, your Death of Gwen Stacy. Things that are monumental. But April is the time reserved for historically bad comics, and I'm very excited.
Yes, and is it okay? So today we are reading Secret Invasion, which was the big Marvel Comics event of 2008. Is that right?
Yes, and apparently there's a new Secret Invasion going on right now.
A TV show. You mean in the comics?
Yeah, there's another Secret Invasion like 2022. Wow. The same way they had like Secret Wars again, like in 2015.
Yeah. Topical. Great. This was written by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Leinil Francis Yu. And I think we have, when I say we, I think Vince and Chris have historically panned this comic on the show. Right. I don't know how hated it is in the world out there. But I don't know much about it. I'm fine with Bendis. More fine than Chris is. Chris hates Bendis.
I'll go out that I say that when people were talking about like what things they should adapt from Marvel movies and stuff, Secret Invasion was at the top of people's lists, and then Chris would come out of the woodwork and be like, "Are you insane?" Like in internet posts that I would see, like, and I'm like, I didn't even know Chris was part of this community, but here he was saying like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that book is terrible." I'm a little gentler to it now. I'll to get ahead of final thoughts, but. Mm-hmm. Oh man!
If anything, I'm worse on it. I think it's aged horribly.
And I had never read this before, but I will say the premise right off the bat is like, I don't know what the premise is necessarily of this specific book, but in general, the premise of Skrulls coming and who can you trust and all that kind of stuff. I think it has a lot of interesting elements to it that would be good for some kind of a movie or TV show. So I can get the idea of wanting to adapt that.
Yeah, I think if you made it a season of what you want to call it, it wasn't called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? If you had a season-long arc about Skrulls, that would be okay.
Yeah.
It is absolutely like a network TV show way to save money. Like, hey, we have this actor. Why don't we just make them our villain also as a shapeshifter? Now we don't have to pay multiple people. It's really great.
And it's just adding intrigue. You're like, oh, whose side are they on? Kind of stuff. But that's not what this story is.
Well, yeah, that's not really what it is. But again, I know, Vince, with you especially, premise can go a long way towards just like keeping you interested in a comic. And I think like I'm thinking of Battlestar Galactica with the Cylons. Like, who's a Cylon? What's that going to be? Like, I like that kind of stuff.
That's probably what he was chewing off of. Oh, that's probably what he was biting.
04, 05 when that's the relaunch started.
BSG ran from like the 03 miniseries to like 2010, off a few years.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a cultural thing after the second or third season.
No, it wasn't. No. It was just a me thing. That's accurate. But yeah,
like, it was sort of a big deal the first two seasons.
Right. So that's right around this time. That's right. And I know that when I was in 06, Bendis had the reveal that like the New Avengers arc, right? Like while Civil War was happening, I think actually, Bendis seeded that the New Avengers killed Elektra, and then Elektra's body turned into a Skrull, implying that Elektra had been a Skrull for who knows how long, had been replaced by a Skrull, the shapeshifter, and who else had been replaced by Skrulls. And that's like in 06. So this series run started in 08, in April 08. So I guess it's been 2 years building up to this culmination of Bendis's run.
It's a good way to address the Bendis doesn't read any comics except by his like direct friends and acquaintances. Because when Elektra shows up like running the hand, you're like, when did this happen? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is actually a Skrull.
I thought about this. Now I don't have to do any backstory to make this link up. Brilliant Bendis.
It's not that I haven't read, Daredevil or Elektra or anything about her status quo. Whatever Marvel Knights series was out at the time. It's just no, she's this is a different character. And I do, again, we'll talk about all of my problems, but that is, I feel like he is directly addressing people who are annoyed at him when all of the classic heroes show up at the end of the first issue.
Right. And for setting the stage also, this is post Civil War. Iron Man is in charge of Shield at this point. He's still like the Avengers, half of the Avengers are still kind of in hiding, just like the Civil War movie. Where they're the secret Avengers or new Avengers, but they don't hang out with like Iron Man's team. And this historically comes out a month before Iron Man 1. Also, I think Thor was, we learned about clone Thor. So Thor's kind of in the mix. Captain America, Steve Rogers is dead at this point. And Hulk has been thrown off planet as of, so Hulk's not around, which is fucking weird considering there was an Iron Man and a Hulk movie coming out within months of this, like that they didn't try to do any type of like sync up, like maybe you should put Hulk in your Secret Invasion book. No.
Right.
Not
but they didn't even, I mean, they didn't even have the rights for the Hulk movie. That
it wasn't
sort of
even like their
one-off.
movie or whatever.
But yeah, and so Thor, this is the real Thor. The Civil War had the clone one. He came back in Oklahoma for J. Michael Straczynski's relaunch. Like
Can I say
this?
Y'all are laying so much out on the table for like what we need to know. None of this matters in this book.
Oh, it's true. It doesn't. But I mean, there are covers of like the big three reuniting, and that's sort of one of what should have been a selling point of the book. They just don't do it.
But you kind of glossed over Captain America dying. This is kind of like where this book I think picks right off, at least picks up from.
He died in 2007, so he's been dead for. And I'm gonna think like Bucky just took over as Captain America around this time. I guarantee you that I don't have to look it up. I guarantee that Brubaker did not look at Secret Invasion to put in his run at all. I'll put that one out there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the story because I think we're talking about a whole lot of stuff and none of it matters.
Well, so I mean, all of the new Avengers stuff does because it's not explained in the book.
You're right. So we start with it's a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents at a bar who have just seen Captain America die on the news. So I guess there was a little lag there. And one of them is like talking a bunch of shit about the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything. And Dum Dum Dugan is sitting at the bar. And someone else is like, hey, that's Dum Dum Dugan over there. Keep your voice down. And he like kind of, he throws a little fit. Dum Dum Dugan like throws a beer at a glass or something and goes out for air. Runs into some countess or something like that. And is this like a Secret Invasion number 0 issue or something?
I didn't
know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The trade that I was reading from, has this like brief preview of them. Like,
this must be an issue 0 or something.
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah, because that would be Contessa Fontaine, who is also a Skrull. So she, I guess, kidnaps Dugan.
Yeah, she like stabs Dugan in the heart or whatever, and like sends some tentacles out at him. I don't know what those are doing, but they're like, I guess, reading his Skrullness or turning him into a Skrull. How does that work? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're getting his DNA. So again, that doesn't make any sense because, well, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. All right. Next, so issue number 1 proper. We have a bunch of secret Skrulls having a meeting a long time ago. I guess preparing their plans. Iron Man's the current director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's briefing Reed Richards and Hank Pym on this big secret that the Skrulls have infiltrated Earth. The Avengers found an Electro Skrull in Japan. Nobody knows how long. Nobody knows how they've been undetected. So he's asked them to work on it. But then he's like, also, I can't even really trust you two either because I have no idea. All right. Why'd you tell them this big secret?
Yeah, why did you only tell these 2 people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to tell somebody, like, all right, we can't just stand here and do nothing for forever. But I don't know. Still, it's weird to tell them. Like, I'm not even sure if I can trust you.
Yeah, it's also weird to tell Hank Pym at all. He's like, you 2 are the smartest people in the world. I'm like, Hank Pym, really?
Okay. I mean, he's pretty good. He's done some science stuff.
Pym particles.
Particles?
Yeah, he did.
He's also the head of the head of the initiative at this point, which is a thing out of Civil War.
Pretty good. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I would say Doom is smarter than Hank Pym, for one thing.
They can't get Doom to help them, though. Come on.
Oh yeah, Doom wouldn't just take orders from any old moron.
He should qualify. You're the 2 smartest people that I was comfortable working with. I think that's the way to say it. So we go out to space. We have the headquarters of SWORD, the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. I guess they're like SHIELD in space, right?
Yeah. They got a girl with cool green hair, Abigail Brand.
Yeah, that's Abigail Brand. Where do we know her from? She's been in other stuff, right? Or is she just a SHIELD agent?
I think there's another like SHIELD or spacey guy named Brand that we recently covered.
Yeah.
Something. I don't know if there's any relation.
All right.
If this character, I mean, she may have been in something else, but she hadn't been in very much at all at this point. This is sort of the star-making turn for her. So yeah, she is in Josh Whedon's Astonishing X-Men is when she first shows up. So yeah, she's been around for like 4 years at this point.
Got it. Well, Dum Dum Dugan is up there as well, hanging out. And we know that he can't be trusted. But they see a Skrull ship on the scanners, and Abigail Brand says, I gotta talk to Stark.
It's a real secret invasion if you're gonna just have a ship in space that's visible to everyone.
It's not very secret. So she talks to Tony. Tony calls Spider-Woman at Avengers Mansion, and she's in a very weird scene. She's like, yeah, talk to me, Tony. You can trust me. I'm the only one that's here. And we see her walk past Jarvis looking all sad. Oh man, just like Jarvis is nobody. My goodness. I wonder if that'll come back at all. The other Avengers, the other team of Avengers also gets together. That's Luke Cage, Wolverine, Echo, Iron Fist, Ronan, who is Hawkeye, and Spider-Man. And they are kind of they're the underground Avengers, right? They're the don't trust Iron.
But they live in a skyscraper. Yes. And they 4 adults in full costume can sit in a couch facing the window together, which is very weird staging for me.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm sure it's a nice view. But then for a little while, this book kind of quickly devolves into some kind of battle-y adventure sort of stuff where I don't quite know what the point is. But they go fight some people. They head to the Savage Land. Spider-Man says oh yeah, this is where things really felt off to me in terms of the pacing of the book. Spider-Man is I hope it's a Skrull trap. I'm so sick of hiding. I'm sick of not trusting each other. I just want things to go back to normal. He just wants to get it all over with. And I'm like, this is just issue number 1. I kind of would have liked to have seen some moments of them not trusting each other until Spider-Man is oh, I'm so tired of this untrusting business.
Right. Well, and then I don't really like my lampshading on comics when Hank Pym goes when have things ever been normal? And I go, I get that because Spider-Man, you have 4 crazy adventures a month, but don't. That's when the publisher takes the hold of the joke, and I'm I don't like this as much now. Now that y'all recognize this too, I don't like it.
Yeah,
it doesn't bother me. But they get hit by a dinosaur.
Hell yeah, I'm back on board. I was bothered for a panel ago. Now there's a dinosaur.
And then a second dinosaur comes to bite the other dinosaur to free them. 2 dinosaurs. And then I think 2 pages later, we're done with the dinosaurs. Sorry, Vince.
Who was the character on New Avengers that's the Savage Land is real? I'm you guys have all been here. I don't understand how anyone is questioning this.
But they're
Skrulls. Unless they're Skrulls.
Mm-hmm.
Who've never
None of
been
them
to
are
the
Skrulls. Spoiler alert.
Most of the heroes, I think, spend the majority of this book in the Savage Land. Yes, we spend a lot of time in the Savage Land doing a whole lot of nothing. But what happens? They get the other Avengers team with Iron Man, Spider-Woman, Miss Marvel, Ares, Sentry, Wonder Man, and is that Maria Hill? Who was that? They all show up.
No,
I don't think that's Maria Hill.
It's Black Widow.
Oh yes, you're right, Black Widow. Thank you.
And Iron Man wants to arrest them. And I think Luke Cage asked a very valid question. I don't think the Savage Land has an extradition treaty.
No.
With America, because Superhero Registration Act, I'm pretty sure is an American law. I don't know if it's an international law. I still don't know how they arrest them, and for what.
Well, probably for doing stuff in America, and he just happened to find them in the Savage Land.
Yeah, but again, no extradition. I think Antarctica belongs to some other country, so take it up with them.
Mm-hmm. So this the Renegade Avengers found some structure that they were going to try to break into, and the other Avengers are trying to stop them. And while they're kind of arguing, this is when we see the Skrulls kind of unleash their plan all over the place. We see up in space. Dum Dum Dugan blows up that sword
The
satellite
Peak, that's a
thing
cool name.
there. The Peak is what they call it. Yeah, it's pretty good.
The watchtower, the JLA watchtower.
You didn't want to call it Damocles sword? Is that too on
that
the
would have been
nose?
the Sword of Damocles. Yeah. Jarvis is revealed to be a Skrull. He puts a virus in Iron Man's suit, which kind of has him completely like
A virus that makes him physically ill. I don't really understand how.
He's got the little.
Well-
I don't know if he's got the little like heart robot thingy that's now like doing bio stuff. I don't know.
Or maybe it's like giving him little electric shocks, like in very annoying places that are kind of debilitating.
I'm more bothered by the UI saying alien virus detected.
Yeah,
which
it
means
says
someone
that in a lot
programmed
of
that
places.
in as an error message.
Into a lot of different computer systems everywhere. We have the raft, the cube, which I've never heard of, but it's another like super holding facility. They've all got alien viruses detected. We've got Novar, Marvel Boy, who we don't see much of him. There was a Grant Morrison miniseries from him for a while back. He never really interacts with a lot of people.
Yeah, he'd never been in 616 continuity before this.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just in that Grant Morrison mini in like 2002 or 3.
That's I appreciate Bendis being like, hey, this guy's cool. Let me put him somewhere, and then Bendis not being able to like take it across the goal line.
Yeah, here's the Sentry, a character we all know and love today, right?
I would say none of these.
Did we mention he's there too? The Sentry is there.
We did mention the Sentry is there. We'll talk more about him crying in space later. We have Thunderbolts Mountain as well. The Thunderbolts, one of my favorite teams of villains, at this point are looking very different. We have them post-Civil War run by Norman Osborn, and Captain Marvel busts in because he's going to beat them up or something.
Yeah, the Thunderbolts at this time were like I think it was written by Warren Ellis.
That's
I think this was just post Ellis because I remember the book went off a cliff around 2006 or so.
Because it was like I think Scorpion Matt Gargan got the Venom symbiote.
Yes,
so
I remember
he was Venom, but he was Black Suit Spider-Man, and I want to say Bullseye was Hawkeye for this team. It was like all villains, but they were being really habilitated as part of the Superhero Registration Act. They're like, we have powers, we can be heroes, right? And like I guess that makes sense as much as anything. Yeah. But then they still had like
Moonstone and Songbird were still there.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about the Thunderbolts later. Norman Osborn will show up a few times throughout here. The rest of the Thunderbolts barely do, though. We have the Baxter Building where the Fantastic Four live. There's a little tour going through there. And I just noticed, I think Colbert appears in this book twice. He's on somebody's shirt, Colbert 08.
He was running for president, and it was...
I don't know if that... Yeah. We also have a tourist here on this group who kind of breaks away from the pack. And we see him turn into Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, and she takes the elevator up. ID confirmed, no problem. Right in. Walk right past Johnny Storm and her kids, and she goes straight to this portal to the negative zone and busts it open. Activates it, I guess I should say. And this thing just starts eating a hole into the top of their building and sucking everything in. And seems like you should do something about that.
Read, I guess, Secret Invasion, Fantastic Four to find out what happens with that, because we never do in this.
Yeah, they do skip some of the information here. There is then this whole other team of Avengers lands in the Savage Land while everyone's kind of dealing with Tony being out in his suit. And it's like a team of Avengers that look like kind of older costumes, like I guess maybe
70s costumes, like
70s, 80s, 90s costumes. Yeah.
This is who is like Luke Cage opens up the alien spaceship or whatever, and this is who comes out.
Oh, I see.
All the 70s style heroes. You've got Jean Grey in her green Phoenix outfit, Beast and Wonder Man, and all of these classic looking heroes, and Mockingbird, Hawkeye's wife.
And they're all like, "Woo, we made it back to Earth."
So at this point, as readers, are we supposed to believe that they may actually be the real heroes, and our heroes we've been following are Skrulls?
I mean, maybe if you've like been hit in the head.
No, I don't think so.
Because there's no way that like I mean, I remember when people were pissed off when Marvel decided it'd be really cool with the Clone Saga if we revealed that actually our Peter Parker we've been following for the last 25 years is a clone. and this is the real Peter Parker. If they were like the Jessica Jones that's here, that was an alias, was actually a Skrull the entire time you followed her, like
Yeah, literally since the creation of Jessica Jones.
No, I think if that's what they were trying to do with this, they would have definitely sold that a little bit harder, because they also pretty quickly revealed that some of these people they're basically all Skrulls. Yeah,
they all are Skrulls, but
yeah. Well, and the idea here, I guess, is supposed to be like, so Skrulls. I don't know if we've explained what they are, but they're aliens who can shapeshift. They showed up in Fantastic Four like issue 2 or 3, where Reed Richards turns them into cows, because it was the Silver Age. And since then, like they were, Super Skrull is the only one that has the powers of the Fantastic Four. Regular Skrulls are just shapeshifters. So they're sort of like not even as good as Mystique, who can alter like her body shape. They're basically just like, we can look like guys. So these guys, I guess, and the other thing is Reed Richards has the technology to like find out who's a Skrull. So the idea was, okay, well, these guys, you can't do that, and they also have the superpower of the guy they're copying. And so, like you were saying, Vince, it's more like, Cylons, but I don't know how this happened. I don't know why. It's just like Reed Richards can't detect it. They never explain.
They start to explain it, but then they don't.
Yes. Reed is like, I have the answer, and then he just has like a ray gun later that,
I think we're getting to that right now, actually. We've got Reed and Hank Pym are working in the lab, and Reed is like, I figured it out. And he said, oh, yeah, do you know how they do it, Hank? I'll tell you. And Hank's like, I already know. And he pulls a gun on him, and he blasts him, and it like, I think this is my panel of the week, actually. Reed getting blasted into just like a bunch of goopy, rubbery stuff that's just like hanging all over the place. I thought that was cool.
I did like that panel. I will say I am not a fan of Yu's art in general. I think he can't draw faces. He can't draw pupils.
Yes.
Everyone has caveman brows.
I will say I've always kind of liked his art a little bit better than this, but maybe I'm also just misremembering. I think he does big kind of action sequences real well, but like putting him with Bendis, who does a lot of talking heads, is not the greatest match, because he doesn't do great faces.
He's not. Yeah, it's very hard to tell like who's Iron Fist and who's Hawkeye. You're like, you have the same face.
Yeah.
And also, and again, maybe it's unfair, but I don't think it is, honestly. 2008 was 15 years ago. Women existed. There is a huge amount of cheesecake, and it's distracting. Like,
there is a lot of cheesecake in this.
Like, every Spider-Woman scene in this first issue, every Ms. Marvel scene in the next issue, I'm like, okay, you don't have to position the camera directly behind their butt every time.
No.
They do it a lot with
naked dead Skrull Elektra.
Yes, we
not
do
to
have
kink shame anyone, but
yeah. Well, let's keep going.
You need a female editor on your staff to like cut this down by 50%.
Yeah. We have so jumping straight into issue 2 here. We have this first issue is kind of a longer one, pretty packed. By the time we get to this, these issues are going to flow a lot more quickly here. So issue 2. The two big Avengers teams have their big fight: the fake Skrull Avengers versus the real Avengers of Earth. And everyone gets some one-liners in, and they fight a bunch. Black Panther is hanging out in the trees shooting arrows at people. We have... Oh, wait, was that Black Panther? Was that Ronin?
That was Ronin, Hawkeye.
Okay, yes. I was like, wait a minute. As I was reading it back, I said, that wouldn't make sense. It should be Ronin. We have Tony retreats...
I do like that. Like the setups are, is it's supposed to be like 70s Luke Cage versus modern Luke Cage, and where there isn't an analog, it's like Ares fighting Thor. I like that kind of matchups, at least. I think I think it's well thought out in that regard.
Yeah.
We have Tony kind of retreats to a random cave. He needs to just dump his suit and rebuild from scratch. And he's like, yeah, I've done, my first suit was worse than this. I've got a whole bunch of materials here I can find. Sends Miss Marvel and the rest of the team away. Wolverine and Luke find Skrull Spider-Man dead, and they're kind of talking about the whole thing. Mockingbird shows up, and Wolverine at first thinks she's a Skrull, tries to kill her. Then she's crying over dead Skrull Hawkeye's body. And but then real Hawkeye, Ronin, shows up, and they kind of he vets her, by asking her about the date when she had a miscarriage or something like that. Pretty rough, but they're able to determine she's real, and they share a nice little kiss together.
So I guess the scene that we didn't see with Dum Dum Dugan, that's what they're doing. They're like extracting their memories and stuff. Because otherwise, you're like, they never used to be able to do this stuff. It's just they can now.
Wait, so she was a Skrull? I guess so.
Yes, she ends up being a Skrull, but then the real Mockingbird is also found at the end.
All the people that are replaced, Dum Dum and Contessa and all of those people do show up at the end.
Right. We are kind of skipping ahead, but the story, there's never like a payoff or like a big reveal of like, other than the Hank Pym one of turns out I'm a Skrull. That's kind of the only one that has
one more that's very heavily foreshadowed.
Okay, yes. But the majority of them just kind of like don't matter. It's very just like, oh, turns out you're gonna fight me.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a bad story, so it's not surprising. But it's and I challenge both of you, Vince and Kia. What is you might know Queen Veranke or whatever is Spider-Woman's Skrull name. What is Hank Pym's Skrull name?
Why do I need to know that?
The second villain of this book?
Kl'rt.
Kl'rt? No, Kl'rt is a super.
That's a super Skrull.
I know two Skrull names. That's it. and Teddy.
Yeah.
From Young Avengers.
So we have no idea. Like, that's a problem. And again, to compare, Kia, I know you follow wrestling. Vince, I know you don't really. But it's just like you have to, because I remember Thor: The Dark World was really guilty of this. You have to give your villains some wins. And yes, like the villains, they sabotaged Iron Man's armor. Oh no, they blew up the shield helicarrier. What? We've never seen this before. But then after the first issue, it's like they never do anything right ever again. Like they just get ass kicked for 6 issues.
Which is why I got bored of Harry Potter. Like Voldemort got his ass kicked for 8 books in a row. It's like it's hard to really get it up on or 7 books, I guess. And they're like, this time he's really got it together though. I'm like, no, not really. He's been beaten by 10-year-olds. But
repeatedly.
My challenge to you is also go ahead, yeah.
Well, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
My challenge to you is also, like Fear itself, who is the main hero of this book?
I don't think. Okay, I'm gonna disagree
Tony
with both.
Will disappear for issues at a time. But Kia, you also skipped over Sentry leaving the book because he breaks the book.
I will get there. We'll get there. So I will say it doesn't need a main hero because it's a team book. It's a universe book. It could have done with a main hero, but it doesn't necessarily need one. And I will say I don't think I'm bothered by villains in this book not having a name. Because I just think of them as fake Jarvis and fake Spider-Woman and fake Hank Pym. Like I still have the identifiers for them, and I know who they are. And I didn't even think Hank Pym was that big of a villain, other than just like another random Skrull. It's like they're a force rather than individuals. I don't really think of the Skrulls as like, oh, this is the one that matters. Like it's just like, nah, they're all just kind of shitty and Skrully.
Yeah, but it's like, I know, and we read Infinity Gauntlet, which we didn't love, I don't think, but we liked it.
No, yeah.
And it's just like, like who Thanos is, what he wants, and he does accomplish some of his goals.
I'm not arguing that it couldn't have been better, because it definitely could have. But I think those specific complaints aren't things that necessarily bothered me. It's more just the overall, just lack of direction from the book, I think, and lack of kind of anything to latch onto. Which I think both of those are like kind of directly compared to that problem, but not exactly the parts that bothered me. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Right. Well, it should be. And again, we're doing a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, but it's like they set up, the Secret Invasion, Fantastic Four book. They have to deal with the Negative Zone. Oh, they have to deal with the Thunderbolts tie-in. Oh, they have to deal with the Avengers Initiative tie-in. The Young Avengers, I guess, will be there because they don't have their own book right now. Your main core thing should be pushing the Avengers book characters, because those are like who this has been about. And they should be doing stuff every issue to move the plot forward.
That's just basic storytelling. What kind of book wouldn't do that?
Yeah, you'd think, but here we are.
Let's keep going through this. We're getting a little too deep into final thoughts, I think, already. But we have So Mockingbird and Hawkeye have shared a kiss together. The Avengers, the Young Avengers, are seeing this whole negative zone hole in Manhattan. They decide they need to do something. They're drawn so weird in these panels with their faces. And there's a full-on Skrull attack. Oh no! Jumping into issue 3.
Let's go back though. We Vision convinces
Sentry.
the Sentry, whose Sentry is like god level powers.
He's supposed to be Marvel Superman, but he has schizophrenia, everyone.
That's right. During the big battle with all the people, Vision and Sentry kind of pair off together, I think, right?
Yes.
70s Vision. And 70s Vision, the Skrull, basically convinces Sentry to go cry in space and leave the book. So
he turns into the void and says, "This is your fault, Sentry. You were a bad boy." And he's like, no. And has to fly into space.
He's probably right. Yeah, so he's up there, I think, for the rest of the book.
That's it. That's a wrap on Sentry.
Jarvis is now in the beginning of issue 3. Jarvis is speaking for the Skrulls, and he's kind of meeting with Maria Hill, talking to her about like, oh, this is we're taking over. This is how things are going.
Why is he showing up as Jarvis?
I don't know.
What does that do?
The other thing that bothers me
is
cover. You never see the Skrulls like turn, other than that one tourist who turned into Sue Storm. You never see them like turn from one person into another person. They're never really like taking advantage of that, like being able to be multiple people. They're all just like hanging out and being one.
This is certainly not in this book. I can't speak to the other 20 tie-ins. I'm gonna say that they don't have the powers to do that.
They can only turn into one person at a time.
Yeah. They definitely don't have the memories and all of that stuff.
Yeah, because they programmed in whenever they kidnapped Mockingbird, her memories up to that point are put in like a clone into the Skrulls, because she legitimately thought she was not a Skrull.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll at least do that. If this was a TV show, it's like because they didn't want to pay another actor or put him in the makeup, and that's why he's Jarvis right now. But it really does blow his cover, and it doesn't like really like help
serve any purpose.
It doesn't serve any
purpose. He could have just been a Skrull. But apparently, even having your cover blown will the news has not reached everybody, as we'll find out later in the book. Jarvis is demanding that they surrender, which they're not gonna.
And this is also when Maria Hill started getting quippy. Maria Hill was like very no nonsense through like Civil War and when Bendis created her, and now she's gotten real quippy.
Well,
I think there's a reason for that in this book. We'll get to that.
Oh, it's just Peaches. I'm like, that's not a Maria Hill. I didn't like her becoming so informal. I think, although she's.
Everyone in this book is informal, though. It's a Bendis book.
Very informal.
Again, that's a character created by Bendis, right?
Right, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, so moving on.
I don't understand how he writes his own characters out of character.
It's not. All right, we'll get to that. The first half of this issue is all random fighting. A lot of the Young Avengers kind of there. Nothing that seems very important at all. Spider-Woman, Skrull, is talking to Tony as well, saying that Tony is the greatest Skrull warrior, that he is like in deep cover and he doesn't even know he's a Skrull, and she's trying to wake him up, which is not true, I don't think.
No, it's not true, but I did think that was like, this is a really interesting way to put the reset button on him being the villain of the Marvel Universe right as the movie comes out. It's a real interesting way to undo this. So I was like, okay, are we supposed to buy this? Okay, I mean, it would explain a lot.
Yes. And then we have, he's like, no, it's not true. Vision gets like blasted by, like, current Vision, I think, is hanging out somewhere, and he gets blasted by some Skrulls right in the head.
Vision's with the Young Avengers now, which we just covered. Yes. I don't think we ever did he come?
Oh, you're
Vision?
Right.
Like Kid Vision or something.
Yes, we did see that. Yeah. And then Nick Fury and his crew show up to help the Young Avengers, and they've got the Hood and some other people I don't know, but we'll maybe meet them later. Maybe
Nick's
names down.
The Hood shows up later. Yeah. This is the Secret Warriors? Is that what they're called?
Nick Fury's Secret Warriors. That sounds familiar.
Well, because they've got like Quake or Daisy something.
Yeah, Daisy.
Right? Daisy, yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Ridley.
Stonewall is the other guy's
She
name.
was on S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., wasn't she, Kia?
Yes. She was terrible at the beginning, but she got to be okay by the end.
Okay.
We have let's just go straight into issue 4 here now. God, I will say though, these panels of Tony Stark kind of like sweating bullets while Spider-Woman's trying to tell him he's a Skrull. Boy, these are weird to look at.
I never noticed how. Oh, go ahead.
Also, so again, I know it's just my petty, like this isn't what I want from superhero comics, but Black Widow kills 2 X-Men Skrulls, Beast and Phoenix, and you're just like, okay, so wait, they have powers. They're not like they're like the Super Skrull, but you can also just shoot them and kill the Phoenix Skrull version. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And the heroes are like, at the drop of a hat, are like, yeah, kill them. And they're never wrong. Like, every single body they find, they're like, Skrull, Skrull, Skrull. So yep. I'm just like, so this is the thing. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's also 2008, so I don't know if I am. I've been hearing more and more people kind of come to realize that the rise of like zombie movies after 28 Days Later and what was the Resident Evil film franchise, there was a lot of post 9/11 like, look, these aren't human. It's okay to murder them. They're not people. We can kill them. And like that's what this book just turns into. It's like, it's okay that your superheroes are not going to cross a moral event horizon if they say, like one of them does next issue, kill all of them. You're just like, wait, what? Like, these are superheroes. Like, maybe that shouldn't be the solution.
It does get a little violent and just like a little too neat and easy of just murder the Skrulls.
Yeah, they're not people. They're only bad. It's just this is the solution for everything. They are a invading extremist religious fundamentalist force, and you're just like, oh, okay. So that, like I said, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it is 2008, and they do have John McCain show up in this book.
he is in this book. Yeah.
So it's hard to like get past the like war on terror stuff in this book. Because I was just like, man, this is in such bad taste today that it's just like celebrating, like, oh boy, the superheroes are gonna kick some alien butt by just murdering these aliens who, and I'm not saying the Secret Invasion book or TV series or whatever it's going to be is like that, and I hope it's not, because the Captain Marvel show the Captain Marvel movie made the Skrulls characters.
Yeah, and it's with Samuel L. Jackson leading it supposedly, so it's going to be more Nick Fury, and I think Ben Mendelsohn is in it, who was like the head of the Skrulls. So it's got to be smaller, because you can't bring in Captain America and Iron Man in that movie.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that it is more character based and you have characters on both sides that are people. But this book really goes out of its way to be like, no, they're not people. It's okay to murder them, even if, Spider-Man can murder these guys and we're not going to lose sleep over it. And I don't like that in a superhero comic.
So I guess jumping into issue 4, is that where we're at now?
With Nick Fury and Young Avengers on the cover. Who would have thought?
Yes. We have the monologue from someone in the Skrulls talking about how they're taking over. We see that over, like, Reed is trapped in one of these Skrull spaceships being held, all stretched out. These sword agents who got their satellite blown up, they are trapped in space bubbles. Sentry is still crying up out in space. We see Fury's team join the fight. Spider-Woman is still convincing Tony he's in deep cover. And then a bunch of other people show up, Beast and Phoenix and Black Widow, and there's some fighting there with them. Black Widow manages to inject Tony with some anti-venom, anti-poison stuff to get rid of whatever the Skrull Spider-Woman gave him.
Like. Yeah, I think, she just gives him a shot of adrenaline.
Okay. We have...
also, this is the part I texted both of you that everyone talks like Mort Seinfeld in this book. This dialogue from Black Widow where he's like, they could have killed me. And he's like, they could have put a matzo ball in your before bed or whatever. And you're like, what? Why is Black Widow talking about matzo balls to Tony Stark? Like neither of these are New York Jewish characters. Like do they just love matzah?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe
That's how they relate to each other.
Yeah, maybe Black Widow's been in some deep cover situations recently where she's still in character a little bit. I don't know. We have up in space. There's Abigail Brand, the green-haired sword agent, and they're still alive. They're like encased in these protective bubbles, kind of floating around up there. And she manages to sneak onto a Skrull ship that's passing by, and she sees all the footage on their screens. She sees the video footage of Reed Richards being held captive, and so she's like, "Oh, I gotta go save them." Then she runs into some Skrulls on the ship. Later, we have Skrull Jarvis. He's still talking to Maria Hill, asking for their surrender. The Hood and his team are all there joining the fight as well with the Young Avengers and everything. A lot of random fighting in this book that doesn't feel like it amounts to much of anything. It's just like there's constantly a battle happening somewhere that just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
the Avengers still in the Savage Land, except Ms. Marvel, who flew up to New York, and then Nick Fury is like, I bet she's a Skrull, and shoots her, and she's not. That's the one time this happens, but it also happens to Ms. Marvel, so she's fine.
She was fine. Thor shows up too at the end of this book, and everyone's like, whoa, Thor, and someone in a Captain America costume is watching with binoculars.
I wonder if we'll follow up on that next issue.
What? Did they follow up on that at all in this series? Captain America?
They are just working together in the next issue, right?
No. Bucky Cap doesn't show up until page 17, 2 issues from now.
Yeah, I was gonna say the next issue 7, 6 or 7.
We're about to get into 5. This is the end of issue 4.
We're halfway through.
Right now.
But they're not. Yeah, Bucky Cap is not in the next issue. I don't think.
I don't remember him in this book at all. Let's keep going. Thor, I don't think is in the next issue either. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know if Bucky Cap was. He had to have been revealed by this point. Like he was taking
2 years afterwards. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
They revealed it. I just don't know if you knows what the costume looks like or what he's supposed to look like.
Yeah. So we have Norman Osborn. Oh yeah, in issue number 1, Captain Marvel showed up at Thunderbolts Mountain. Now Norman Osborn is talking to Captain Marvel, basically like talks him out of attacking, and so he leaves.
And Captain Marvel is dude Captain Marvel.
Yes, original dude Captain Marvel from the Kree.
Marvel.
Didn't he die? Which one is?
Yeah,
this?
he died.
He's the one who died of cancer. Yes.
Okay, great.
But he's back.
We read his death issue. This has, I think, the worst dialogue in the entire book, where Norman is like, "Believe it or not, I know what it's like to not know if your skin is green or pink." You're like, what the hell are you talking about?
He's talking about not knowing if he's the Green Goblin or if he's.
Do you think you have green skin when you're the Green Goblin?
Well, it's
maybe Bendis forgot that this wasn't the ultimate.
Well, no, I think he was just like so insane that maybe he thought it was like his, just his true skin or whatever.
But it's supposed to be a metaphor, but it's also like it's a metaphor that doesn't make any sense to Captain Marvel.
But it makes sense to the audience as a wink, and we're all like,
it's just a wink to the audience where you're like, he was the Green Goblin.
Yes. The Young Avengers are still hanging out at this base with Fury and the Hood and stuff. A weird page here. This is maybe the stupidest page in the book, with all the celebrities who are Skrulls now telling the people that they are in charge. And you have everybody from Obama to the Pope to Namor to John McCain to Stephen Colbert to Cartman from South Park to Putin to Kim Jong-il, or was this Kim Jong-un at this time? I don't remember. Oprah.
Steve Jobs is telling us.
Dr. Doom and Steve Jobs, Tiger Woods, Mr. Fantastic. Was that Paris Hilton, I think, as well?
So did the Skrulls replace Trey and Matt, and then they, like, in a week hastily made a Skrull Cartman?
They gave them the powers in all the memories. How long were Matt and Trey replaced by Skrulls?
They have all the knowledge of Matt and Trey. They remember making basketball.
They don't. They probably got him right at Team America, and then everything from South Park from like 05 to 08 was made by Skrulls.
Was Skrulls. That makes sense.
That's when I started falling off. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, perfectly lines up.
This is actually the third Colbert reference, by the way, Kia, because there was a Colbert billboard in the previous issue
A lot
as
of
well.
Colbert in this book. Wow.
You see Colbert? The Colbert Report was a big deal, and Colbert. I said I joked he was running for president, but he actually did he kind of was, but it was a really interesting thing that I think he was running and telling us all the things he would have to do to make sure he could get on ballots, and he was trying to break campaign finance laws without doing it. So he could consult with his friend, who also happened to be the guy in charge of his PAC. And he's we can't directly talk about it on the air, but I could just say hey, I'm thinking about investing in this kind of thing for ads. And the PAC could be the PAC guy would just cough and and is that totally legal? Yes, it is. It was very, very good television about how fucked up U.S. politics are and campaign is. So Colbert 08 was a really good educational thing for me.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
I don't know.
Thanks,
I that's the best part. I was that was a good time. I remember. I was happier remembering that than anything else in this book. So.
All right. Great. So back in space, we have green hair sword agent. I've forgotten her name again. Abigail Brand. She tricks the Skrulls because she speaks Skrullish or whatever they call it. And she's like, hey, it's me. I'm in deep cover. Don't you know me? And then she attacks them or whatever. And she rescues Mr. Fantastic. He chokes her out because he thinks she's a Skrull. And she's like, no, I'm not.
More dehumanization for the Skrulls. They never translate any other language. So it's just green, blurp, blurp text.
They translated it right here when they were talking, didn't they?
Right. But every time they speak, their Skrull language around everyone else,
yes.
It's never translated. And like I said, it's just they're alien others. They're green, so it's okay. If they were another color, that would be bad. But this is nothing like real life. We're just they're religious fundamentalists who it's okay to murder.
Yeah, they never tell us what they're saying. They look angry though. We should kill them.
Yeah.
So
they keep talking about their god. That's bad.
They do that a lot. Mr. Fantastic does straight up choke out Abigail Brand. He's very angry. He's like, I'm out for vengeance. I have a plan. And yeah, we'll get to more of what they do in a bit.
He's looking Harvey Dent-ish.
Yeah.
He does say, sorry, I choked you out, which Reed Richards' classic catchphrase.
Yes. So we have Maria Hill still talking to Jarvis Skrull. I think they've been talking for
3 issues now.
Yeah. And Maria Hill is getting really kind of quippy, really kind of annoying Jarvis. And Skrull Jarvis, so annoying everybody. So Skrull Jarvis executes her, and they shoot at her. But turns out it wasn't even Maria Hill at all. It was a life model decoy. Classic Shield. Shield.
She's like, I'm going to get a custom T-shirt made when I visit the boardwalk of New Jersey. What are you talking about?
So maybe life model decoy Maria Hill was the one who's very quippy and that I don't like. So I'll chalk it up to that. She was out of character because she was out of character. Okay.
Right.
Maybe.
Because it wasn't even her. Yep. We have... Captain Marvel now shows up in space for some reason, and him and Abigail Brand and Mr. Fantastic all head to pick up some more people to join their crew, even though Mr. Fantastic was like, but my family, we have to go after help them first. And Abigail Brand says, nope, we got more important things to do. And they show up.
We got to go to the Savage Land where the Avengers have been hanging out for 4-ish.
Or they've been there for a while now.
We are still... Man, this book really did make me think for 4 months that, everybody else was a Skrull, but not Mockingbird.
Yeah. But it's because we've barely seen Mockingbird. It's hard to make you think somebody might or might not be a Skrull when you don't see them. Yeah. So they show up in the middle of this big Savage Land fight. All the heroes are kind of united, I guess. Ronan has a very emotional moment after he's been murdering some Skrulls, and he's like, every last one of them dies. I guess this is when they revealed Mockingbird was a Skrull and they had to kill her, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Again, and I know it's a simpler time, but we've never done the what was it? The 1990s Kree Skrull storyline where half of the Avengers say it's okay to murder the Supreme Intelligence, and Hawkeye and Captain America are like, no, even though he did like super genocide to his own people, we're not executioners. We shouldn't get to just murder aliens that we don't like. But now Hawkeye's like, no, they made me remember a miscarriage, so I am very mad.
They fucked with my head.
I guess we're getting into issue 6 now. Yes. We have Marvel Boy riding down to Earth on like a space motorcycle or something. And Captain Marvel crashes down next to him, but it's Skrull Captain Marvel. And he tells Marvel Boy, these people don't respect honor. They don't respect the Kree. We all got a job to do. I don't know what that job is because I don't think we saw Marvel Boy again after this. The Skrulls, meanwhile, are like talking to the government or something, and they're saying, this is how it's going to be now. And the government's like, okay, I guess y'all are in charge. We have a bunch of random humans.
I did read that there is like, it's kind of fucked up that like none of the world's militaries show up at all for this entire event, right?
No, because the Skrulls are in charge. Why would they?
like I read like some. I was trying to read like some reviews of the time, like it's just the Avengers versus the Secret Invasion. There's no one. There's normal that fights against them. Okay, all right.
We have a bunch of like protesters, not protesters, just like civilians are out there and they're welcoming the Skrulls. Then the cops are like, what the fuck? And they're like, yeah, they're gonna take down your fucking fascism, you pigs. I don't think they said that, but in so many ways.
I mean, when I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's where the book got me. I'm like, okay, well, all right.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've already got, not to get too political, but the world's already taken over. What's the difference if somebody else takes it over, right? Might have better luck with the Skrulls.
These Skrulls are like, I mean, we can solve your world hunger problems. And it's like,
yeah, and
your like exploitation of like the poor, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
right,
I'll try my chances with them. Yeah. But then the Skrull is just like, he's angry. We don't understand what he's saying, but he looks mad because he's on fire. And so the cops start shooting. Young Avengers show up. Turns into a big fight scene here. And the Spider-Woman is talking to everybody, and we're doing it for God. She's like the queen or the empress or something. She seems like the main villain of this story, right? Spider-Woman, whichever villain Skrull she is. But again,
Queen Ferengi.
It doesn't matter. Secret Invasion 7. Just lots of fighting. Spider-Man had a fun line that I wrote down where he's like, oh, look, man, don't worry. I forget who he's talking to, but it was like, this is going to be fine. It's not a big deal unless Uatu, the Watcher, shows up to check out what's going on. And then, of course, he shows up. And they're like, all right.
But like a page later, I kind of wish that it had been like a runner.
It would have been worked a little better, but I didn't mind it. It was the only thing. No, I wrote down 2 things in this, but that and the Jessica Jones business, where Jessica Jones is like watching all this on the news. And she's like, I gotta go help Luke. Jarvis, I'm leaving the baby with you. Jarvis is a known Skrull. How does she not know?
I was more like,
how did Jarvis get back?
Yeah, how did Jarvis? Did Jarvis die on the helicarrier with Maria Hill? 1. So, no, I saw him die, so he's fine. So, did normal Jarvis come back? When the fuck did normal Jarvis come back? And then I'm like, oh, okay, right.
Yeah, but he is a Skrull Jarvis. We see him and the baby glow green for a second, as though something might happen with them.
I do love the 2 little baby fingers on the baby. Danielle, I think is her name or something.
She's like holding up her hand.
Yes. Pointing at the Skrull Jarvis is fucking hilarious to me.
Like, you seeing this shit? That's what she's doing with her hands.
It's so stupid. We didn't mention. Maybe Vince mentioned it. We just read Young Avengers, and the big storyline in the second Young Avengers is like, oh, Teddy is like the son of Captain Marvel and a Skrull princess. So he should be. I don't know how he would be related to this Queen Ferengi or whatever. Do they have even a scene together? Of course not.
I know Teddy had a scene with some Skrull somewhere, but it didn't register with me at all.
Yeah, really. Yeah. When they're leaving, he's like, "Why would the Skrulls do this? They were a proud, independent people." And then the Skrull is like, he's being led away in handcuffs. Is like, this was our last chance. So stupid.
He does like make like one advocate, and I think that's when they're like, they're religious fundamentalists. They're not going to listen to you. I think that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Teddy didn't die in the middle of this, like from somebody who didn't know him. And like, you say that guy's a Skrull? And you like, shoot him dead.
Oh no!
Yeah,
No! We knew that one.
Bullseye just like immediately like shoots him in the eyeball. Like,
But so here's what I thought was going to happen with with Skrull Jarvis and this baby. Skrull Jarvis was going to like assimilate with this baby or whatever they do, and then kill the baby and just like become a baby that like gets raised by Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. That was what I thought was going to happen.
Perfect revenge.
I don't think that's what happens.
You wait until they have paid for your college degree, and then you say like, Mom, Dad, I hate you. I never want to see you again. And also, I'm a Skrull. And you just right then, dagger in the heart.
This issue also had a bunch of like Hank Pym Wasp subplot that I really didn't care about.
He made Wasp. He gave her giant woman powers. Said she never had giant powers before.
I don't know.
No, I don't think she had ever had the ability to grow giant. As in Ultimate Verse, she did. So we have to do everything that's in that.
Okay, well, it's about to be concluded. I hope that we get to see how this battle goes and we don't just accidentally jump ahead past the battle and don't care about
it. Yeah, I said nobody dies from mistaken identity. I forgot that one character does die as a complete afterthought in a way that's so confusing. You're like, is she dead?
Yeah. All right. So let's get going to issue number 8 here. This is the final issue where they're all ready. We get a whole recap of this fight on the news, and the news is like, "Hey, it's over! Hooray!"
Yeah, we have jumped past.
We're done.
The fight.
The fight is
the climax. We were gonna like, all right, it's time to fight, and then let's pick up hours after the fight. We don't see the battle except in retrospect with 2 narrators.
Which could be an interesting like narrative idea. As you're talking as like a sort of writer ideas because it defies your expectations. Mm-hmm. But then they show it to you anyway.
And I thought it was going to be the kind of thing where like, okay, we're kind of going to go replay the whole thing, but that's just the narrative structure. That's, like you're saying, we're still going to see everything. Not really. They just kind of like, and the fight ended with Norman Osborn getting the kill shot. And we're done with the battle.
Well, no. Well, it's like, so it starts off as like there was a big battle, and then the Wasp died, but don't worry about it. And then Spider-Woman
dissipated. That she was turning into a bomb or something. Like, what even happened?
I don't know.
The Wasp died here.
Also, Norman Osborn gets the kill shot, but against who? We see him shooting a gun, but I don't actually see who he shot. I assume he shot Spider-Woman. It's Spider-Woman.
I assume got shot in the previous issue very weirdly.
Through the jaw.
Yeah.
And okay.
So again, this is all in retrospect now.
It's very weirdly told.
The previous 7 issues have not had this structure.
Yeah.
Okay. So the news is reporting this somehow that this is like killing Osama bin Laden, but nobody knew that she was the queen. Like how?
Yeah.
How does the nations of the world like, oh, Norman Osborn killed Osama bin Laden, but it's just like, but if you didn't know like who that was like 5 minutes earlier.
Well, I don't think they said it on the news like that. They just said he got the kill shot. He's the one who ended it, which like, I don't know how they would know that, but I will say from the news media, that's the better way to present it. Just like he got the killing shot. Don't worry about who it was. You don't need to know that, listener.
Yeah, but again,
it doesn't make sense.
How do they know that?
Because Cartman could be the leader of the Skrulls for all we know.
I'll tell you how they know that. I'll tell you how they know that. Just because the Queen is dead, they're not done. The Skrulls are still controlling the media, and that's what they're wanting to put out there.
Wow.
Wow. Yep. Because I don't know. Because I don't think Spider-Woman. If there was any book for her to address the world, it would be the main book, right?
I think.
So then after this, like everybody is just kind of hanging out and talking, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? We're all here, and the battle's ended, but also we're still suspicious of each other."
Iron Man's like, "Great job, guys," and everyone's like, "We all still hate you."
Yeah.
I did like Thor. Thor's like, "I don't fucking forget what you did with me and the clone Thor. Like, we're not cool." Mm-hmm. Like, yes. I really appreciate that. That was actually a really good scene. I was happy with that.
And it's like he seems to be blaming him for Captain America, Steve Rogers, being dead. Bucky Cap doesn't even talk to him; he just leaves.
Yep.
So,
Jessica,
that cliffhanger scene really paid off for everyone, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
Jessica Jones sees Skrull Jarvis there, and she's like, no, she sees human Jarvis there, and she's like, oh.
Oh
shit.
yeah. So a ship lands, and now all the humans have been released that have been kidnapped by the evil Skrulls, and Jarvis is there.
Yes. And so she flies home and it's like, oh my God, they're gone. And she's freaking out. We get no resolution to this, do we?
No, yeah, this is just like read next issue of New Avengers or whatever.
This book is very, very interested in let's not worry. We don't really care about this event. We got your money. We've got to set up the dominoes for the next year.
Yeah, we're setting up the next year of crap.
Yeah, Reed and Sue kind of finish up their story, and they find Ben and Johnny and the kids who have been doing some negative zone stuff. The president is talking to somebody saying, S.H.I.E.L.D's getting shut down. I'm putting you in charge of it. And we get the reveal that it's Norman Osborn. He's in charge of everything that used to be under the S.H.I.E.L.D. banner. No more Stark Tech anywhere, and he can't be trusted. And then Osborn's like, cool, thanks. And he heads over to his secret villain meeting with Doom, Emma Frost, Namor, Loki, and the Hood.
I do love that Namor's on both the good guy secret cabal and the bad guy secret cabal.
He's great. He's perfect.
He just loves joining groups.
And that's it. That's the end of the book.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it was a terrible ending, really. It just kind of ended, and very difficult to care about.
My first frustrating thing is like, because Norman Osborn killed one person, he gets everybody loves him now. And then he gets to be in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, he didn't show like his organizational prowess with the Thunderbolts to be promoted or anything like that. At least not in this adventure. It just seems like, he got the kill shot. He gets whatever he wants, which seems very bizarre. It does set up the events now that we've got a villain in charge of like S.H.I.E.L.D., which I think Lex Luthor was already in charge of a lot of shit in the DC universe recently, right around this time. So, but that's what the Dark Reign event is, and that's pretty cool. Like as like a storytelling mechanism, and that's more just like shit kind of running through the universe rather than having like a actual event. And that's an okay setup for me. I really hate the structure of just skipping past the climax, and I even hate it more because Bendis did this again with his final issue of Miles Morales before he left for DC. Miles was like leading up to a big battle, and then it just cuts to him in the hospital and everybody telling him what happened for the rest of the battle. And that's how he ended his like 20-year Ultimate Spider run, starting with the death of Peter Parker, Miles Morales.
I don't mind that narrative device if you do still spend the majority of the time like actually going through it and it's just a device. But this didn't even do that. It's just like
I think
twice.
If you want to skip past it, you should actually skip past it and like focus on character stuff. But I mean, the character stuff in this book stinks. So it's good he didn't do that, I guess, because it would have been bad.
My kind of number one complaint, I think, with whatever the last event comic we read as well was, but I really just want editor's notes in there just to let me know that if this is going to be picked up in another book, just say it so I don't have to worry about it, you know? Yeah. Just be like, hey, this story, for more on this, go read this. And it's like, okay.
I think like the first issue usually has like, here's like the roadmap to blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you really should put that in the trade so that we actually know like what the hell else you want us to read, you know?
Right. Like did Reed Richards make the gun? Like, did he spend like a whole issue like doing fun tests or something in Fantastic Four? I'd like to know. Because otherwise it looks like it's just a Deus Ex Machina.
And there's like 5 issues of New Avengers and Mighty Avengers where I assume nothing happens. Where we see that Echo didn't die, where we see Ares fight fake Thor for a while. I mean, like literally nothing could happen because we know that they were still there, just waiting around. So it's just like, what are you doing? Like, and again, comics used to be like this fun collectible thing where they were like 25 cents. These books were like $4 and $5 each. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a huge ripoff. Yeah. And then you're like, but don't worry, folks. Next one's going to be good. It's like, why would you trust that the next one's going to be good? This one was terrible.
Oh, and we didn't say, I think, like, Real Mockingbird came off of that ship. So Mockingbird is now back in the Marvel Universe after being gone for Well, I was reading Marvel since at least 04, so Mockingbird had to have been taken before that?
She dies in like 1990. Like it had been over a decade and a
So
half.
because and I know these heroes like aren't all the same; they've been gone. But like Jessica Drew, the entire time Bendis has been writing her. I think like even through Alias, maybe she's been gone.
Yes.
At least through
That
the New
they
Avengers run. So she's been a Skrull for since the beginning of Bendis's New Avengers run. Um, but it looks like Sue Storm and Dum Dum Dugan got kidnapped like a week ago. So
yes. I do like probably my favorite scene in the whole book is when Dum Dum Dugan and Countess Fontaine are like, hey Nick Fury," and he just like doesn't give them the time of day, just like no. He's dealing with his own new pals, the Secret Warriors or whatever it is they're called, and they are not going to be supporting characters of his.
Yeah. It was a bad book. But at the same time, like, none of what y'all said is like, that's not bad enough. Like, that doesn't bother me. There was a lot of stuff that didn't bother me, but it just still ended up as a whole of just like, whatever. Like, I enjoyed reading it enough that I wouldn't say it was like a avoid comic, but it is just like, just know it's going to be a bad comic when you're reading it, and you'll have a lot more fun with it. I did.
I just don't think there's anything to grab onto though. Like,
No,
what is
absolutely
fun
not.
about it?
Absolutely not. I don't know. I just like I like Skrulls. Maybe that's it. Just like again, the premise of it for me was enough to be like, all right, I want to see who else turns into a thing, and like, Jarvis. Jarvis was probably the best part to latch onto. I think from the beginning to the end, it was all Jarvis. That was he was the star of this book, I think.
And I don't like. I mean, Vince talked about Battlestar Galactica. It could have been a whole like who
It really
can you
could
trust thing, but they
It could
immediately
have
are
been
like,
so much
here
better.
we are. We're the bad guys.
Well, and this was also like built in several years of every Marvel event just seemed like let's just have the heroes fight the heroes again. Like Civil War was that way. World War Hulk was a little bit like that way because Hulk was fighting all the other heroes, and then this is like, well, let's just watch Ares fight Thor or Iron Man fight an Iron Man or Captain America again, And so it was a lot of just like hero on hero action. I was getting real tired of it.
My biggest disappointment is probably that I expected more Bendis quippy talking heads, and I didn't even get that as much as I wanted. So too much fighting. Get all this fighting out of my superhero comics.
Not enough like Spider-Man. He has some quips in like the first 2 issues, and then he just disappears from the book.
This is the opposite of Fear itself, where he didn't show up to like issue 6.
That I would say we've been hovering at. That's probably the most stable. Like the biggest complaint is it needed a more stable cast of characters instead of trying to do too much event stuff.
Yes.
Just like, hey, these are the ones we're focusing on, and we're going to follow their adventures and go from there.
Yeah, they should have honestly just paused Mighty Avengers and New Avengers and just had them like, these are the central characters of the book. We're going to focus on Iron Fist, Echo, Spider-Man, all these characters that have like one line in this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's how like the Spider-Verse event worked, I think, where it was like basically just Amazing Spider-Man, and then there were a lot of like side books like, if you want to see what Scarlet Spider's up to, fucking go for it. He'll team up with Spider-Ham and go off on crazy adventures. But like the core Spider-Man book was just on Peter Parker's perspective from that, and that worked pretty well. But I guess that's not a team book. So
but they should have just paused the book. Like, I know they have to make money or lose less money, I guess, whatever the case may be. But the actual, it's just so much treading water. This was 8 issues. Like, this could have been 4. Like,
right.
It
read
so
like
much,
4.
Could have been a one shot, to be honest.
The more I think about it, like I really like how Age of Apocalypse like established a premise, then dicked around like for 4 months, and then is going to end it. Which I really like that setup. Like let's just see the fallout when we find out that people could be Skrulls for 4 months in a bunch of different books, and then we'll come back for a collected ending. Like
again, like Apocalypse, like he gets a bunch of victories in those books. Like he catches Magneto, like he does a bunch of things. You're not just like, well, Apocalypse, he's a loser. He's gonna lose every single time.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about this before we got to get over to Batman Knightfall here?
Speaking of villains winning, Chris.
Yeah.
Yep. Any last words on Secret Invasion?
This wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was perfectly fine with it. I just hated the ending.
I think I made my point. Like I said, the politics surprised me. Like I knew the book was incompetent, but the thing that I picked up on a lot more was just how bad the politics are, and even to the Norman Osborn. Like that's such a George W. Bush War on Terror ending that it's like Obama's about to be president. Like I think the election has already happened. By the time issue 8 is, well, I think he's been inaugurated by the time issue 8 comes out.
Oh no, it came out December 08, so it's
okay.
It's like 3 weeks after the election.
He hasn't been inaugurated yet, but it's like clearly they wrote this with George W. Bush in mind. So it's so dated and weird. Like even then.
Yeah. It's a real American cowboy. One guy gets a gunshot thing, and then we want a cowboy hero rather than like some type of coalition or anything. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's a mark of a good book, Chris, that you get something new out of it every time. Right?
Let me be clear. The Skrulls are a big problem.
All right. We are moving on to Batman Knightfall here. We have okay. I didn't mention this at the beginning of the show that we've been reading Batfall. Batfall. He calls it Batfall.
Nightman Batfall.
Nightman Batfall. We are on chapter 9 of Knightfall. Maybe chapter 10 if you count that Bane issue we read. But it's Batman 496. Still written by Doug Menck, and Jim Pero. This book opens with Batman stumbling away from the fire at the zoo. I feel like at least 4 of these issues so far have either started or ended or something with Batman walking away from a fire. There's been a lot of fire in this. And one of his ears is all torn off. He's an absolute mess here. Joker and Scarecrow, meanwhile, are eating snacks with the mayor, which seems very nice. They got potato chips and soda pop.
So they got
Joker,
a quarter pounder. Looks like a quarter pounder of cheese.
Looks nice.
I love how abstract these characters look. Like they look inhuman.
They do, especially it's great. And Joker gets an idea for the next phone call that they're going to make the mayor make. They are planning to lure Batman into a trap to kill him. And Scarecrow was like, hold on, man. You're thinking too small. The whole reason we banded together was to take over the city, not just kill Batman. And Joker's like, yeah, but come on. He's like the key to taking over the city. You got to get rid of Batman first. Scarecrow says, it's my gas, and I'm going to choose how we use it. So Joker smashes some chips into Scarecrow's face.
That's panel of the week right there.
Yeah. And that's enough to get Scarecrow on board, I guess, because they go forward with the plan here.
Scarecrow tries to use the gas on Joker, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
That was pretty great.
So they go forward with this plan. Bullock, meanwhile, is getting impatient. He is waiting at the mayor's house, and he says, all right, I'm going to bust in there and find the mayor. But it's booby-trapped, and he trips something, and Batman gets there just in time to save him from the explosion, and he gets out of there.
I like that the guy that Bullock did that for was like, I'm not going in there. Like, we just had a huge explosion at the last place we went into at the amusement park. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a trap. And Bullock's like, get out of the way. I'll do it.
And Batman has also stated that he has gotten no sleep, but he did get himself a new suit.
He did. He changed his suit. Very nice.
Cleaned himself up. He's looking good.
Yes. So Joker and Scarecrow have now hijacked an ice cream truck, and they send it exploding into some police vehicles. Okay, cool. Little aside for that.
It's very Twisted Metal level.
Yes. I like that part. And then they go kind of hide in the tunnels somewhere. We'll learn where. That's right. Where is this? Where did I write this down? The Gotham River Tunnel. That's what they called it. I needed to get the name exactly right. Mm-hmm. Gotham River Tunnel. So the Joker makes the mayor call Commissioner Gordon. It says, Gordon, need you to do what we talked about. Send the National Guard to the tunnel. And Gordon's like, all right, did we get a trace on him? And meanwhile, the cops all head to the tunnel. And Batman, of course, overhears, and he's heading there as well. But that's what the Joker wants. And Bane is watching all this on the news, says, okay, hey, Joker and Scarecrow, they make a pretty good team. And after Batman finishes with them, Batman's going to run my gauntlet. So we must be getting pretty close to the end here. Batman fights Scarecrow. He's got like a fear vision of them killing Robin, but he fights through it. He uses that rage of Jason Todd's death to beat up the Joker. There's like a few pages in a row here of Batman just punching the Joker while yelling, Jason! Jason! And it's very good. And then Batman finds the mayor right as the tunnel starts to give way, and there's a flood coming behind them, and they're running away, and that's the cliffhanger. Yeah, and that's it. It was a very focused issue here.
I do like that the Scarecrow's like, they're supposed to, the fear guy's supposed to make him scared, not make him, but it made Batman mad.
Yeah. Not what he usually does. And this was we've seen a lot of the Joker and Scarecrow. It was nice having an issue kind of super focused on them without a lot of other villains getting in the way here. And we're getting ready to. Oh, there was a little quick scene of Robin as well, being like, "Oh boy, wait till Batman hears how I got rid of the Riddler. He's gonna be mad at me or whatever."
I do like how they now say like the next issue will be the Broken Bat, which if you know what that means, it means his back's gonna get broken. But it's a nice like for an audience of 92, 93, they don't know what that explicitly means. He could just be emotionally broken. But I like that. I think that's a really cool like little like sub name for it. I think that's really cool.
He's gonna get his heart broken by that doctor he saw like 3 issues ago.
Oh, sad. But I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else to really say about this issue? Getting close to the end here.
It's moving. It's what I want. It's moving in the direction. You know, he's fighting some villains. Bullets.
I would argue it's not moving in a direction. It's still the same thing it's kind of been doing. Of just
I guess that's true.
It's really just Batman, kind of like you were saying with the other event comic. Batman met Bane, dicking around with a bunch of villains for a whole while, and then we're gonna finish it off with some Bane at the end here.
Yep.
But again, like we get so much more insight into Joker and Scarecrow than like any character, like hero or villain in Secret Invasion. Like the Joker when he is going through the drive-through and he's like, that'll be $3, and he just like dumps a ice cream cone on the guy's hand instead. It was just like, what? It is the Joker is he's a very annoying guy.
Yep. Worked well though. It was very focused and had a plot, and sometimes that's all you can ask for out of a comic, that it has a plot.
I do like Joker doesn't put together. He is talking to Scarecrow and he's like, I'd like to kill the Batman. I killed Robin once, although he seems to be back somehow. And then Batman starts screaming some random name at him and he's like, I don't know who this is.
Next time we are going to be moving on to chapter 10 of Batman Knightfall. It is in Detective Comics 663. Only 11 chapters total for this part of Knightfall that we're reading. We'll see what happens at the end. Maybe we're going to read a little bit more, but we might stop it there and move on to something else. But next time is going to be a big Batman issue. This is still April Fool's month. We want to continue reading another terrible comic, which we read a while back. We read All-Star Batman and Robin, one of the all-time worst comics I think we've read on the show. We read the first 6 issues, but it did go to 10. So we're going to read those last 4 issues there that I think came out very far from each other, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. It was a 10-issue series that ran from 05 to 08. Yes.
Yeah. We're also going to try to get our friend Nick back on the show. He was there for the first 6. Hopefully we can get the schedules lined up to get him on there with us to finish our journey into these terrible, terrible comics. And then hopefully we'll move on to something good after that. And yeah, is there anything else to discuss for comics?
I think that's it for me.
I think we're good. Chris, how's your Stupid Minds doing? What are y'all up to there?
It's going great. We just did the Scott Baio classic, classically bad movie that is, Zapped. Where Scott Baio gets telekinetic powers and uses them to make women's shirts fall off, and he sees everything.
Wow,
cool. Much like the extras Ricky Gervais, Patrick Stewart sketch. Yes, it is a movie where the heroes assault multiple women and some men, and there's also a subplot involving revenge porn. So again, by our heroes. So. Wow. A comedy you couldn't make today.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Scott Baio.
No.
No, he's a shithead. It's okay.
Yeah,
You don't
he
have to say
sucks.
poor Scott Baio with shitheads. Vince, any shitheads in your life these days?
No, well, besides myself, no. No, we're doing great. No, nothing really to report. I recorded a game so my mom found, but it's not gonna be out for like another month. So we'll talk about it closer to that time. Otherwise, just kind of hanging out, playing the Yakuza, the Samurai Yakuza.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Nice. Been playing Super Mario Odyssey. I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I did beat it. Well, not beat it, but like got the ending and like opened up the whole the cool stuff that comes afterwards. Can't believe I hadn't played this game until now. Good stuff.
Nice. Yeah, it's our last episode before the Mario movie comes out, so it's a big deal. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Huge deal.
I'll take your word for it.
It's going to be our episode. The next Wednesday is going to be the Mario movie, and then you'll be back with us for All-Star Batman and Robin.
Nice.
So it's quite the April.
Quite the April. Well, I think we are probably going to wrap it up here. Vince, thank you so much. I love you.
Love you too, bud.
Chris, thank you so much. I love you.
He loves you. Blows up podcast.
We didn't even mention that recurring line of the thing. They were all the Skrulls. He loves you. He loves you. But it's too bad. The podcast is blown up. Nobody's going to do that. Thank you, listeners. We love you as well. Have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.